There's a bigger issue here. Just because a group of people belong to the Federation, it does not mean that they are saints. The trouble is Earth. On Earth, there is no poverty, no crime, no war. You look out the window of Starfleet headquarters and you see paradise. Well, it's easy to be a saint in paradise. Out there, all the problems haven't been solved yet. Out there are no saints, just people. Angry, scared, determined people who are going to do whatever it takes to survive.
What I want to know is, out of all the stories you told me, which ones were true and which ones weren't?
My dear doctor, they're all true.
Even the lies?
Especially the lies.
On behalf of the Bajoran government
And the Promenade Merchants Association,
I officially welcome you to Deep Space Nine.
Welcome back to one of our special episodes of Especially the Lies, where we have pulled together a crew of people who are able to watch the newest entry into the Star Trek franchise, Star Trek Starfleet Academy. This is going to be our look at the second episode of this new series, The Beta Test, or just Beta Test, there is no "the" in it. As some of you have noticed, we do not have our regular crew on this show, especially our newbies. Our newbies are not allowed to watch this. I don't want to give too many spoilers for episodes still to come, but there are reasons we cannot let our Especially the Lies newbies watch this show, which will become apparent as we keep going through this episode by episode. And hopefully after we get through DS9, we might be able to let a few of them watch this, because I still say with Nicole shipping, this would definitely be a show for Nicole. I am Blake, and with me is...
Emily.
Mike.
Kevin.
And Justin.
Hey, we didn't fuck up an intro for once.
Huzzah!
Kind of a running thing. After all these years, we still can't do intros. Or outros, for that matter. Mike, I understand you've got a synopsis for us on this one.
I suppose I do. On this episode of Starfleet Academy, while struggling with doubts about his Starfleet Academy future, Caleb, who is the main character if you're keeping up, guides a former ally's daughter around campus because she's cute. And leading her around campus, he discovers the true meaning of Academy life? It goes up at the end because I didn't quite get that. But here we go.
Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into getting some first impressions from the folks on this show, and let's start with Justin.
I didn't hate it. Classic answer, right?
Thanks, Jessi.
Oh, I miss Jessi. Anywho, I thought it was actually pretty decent. The whole conflict with the Betazoids first arriving and the natural tensions of the little bit of a backstory you get of how the Federation kind of had to pull back and had to abandon some people to their fate, and the problems that it has had since then, and how they had to protect themselves and trying to get them back in the fold. And you know what? They've moved on and not really sure that they even wanted to deal with the Federation, and they kind of became a little bit isolationist along the way. So I'm always trying to find more interest or find out more about burn and the consequences of it and stuff like that. And I'm kind of glad we're getting a little bit of that, especially since I'm one of the people who didn't really finish Discovery. So getting more backstory and just kind of figure out how the Betazoids had adapted over the centuries and stuff like that was pretty interesting. Again, the same kind of characterization for me. Like I said in the last episode, Beverly Hills 90210 in space. So I'm not really 100% sure how all the little cutesy teenagey interactions are going to go, but so far I kind of like the overall arcing development of it. So it's going to be interesting just to kind of see where they take it from there. And the introduction of the War College I thought was interesting. You see a little bit of that with kind of a more militarized version of Starfleet. I had to kind of pick up the pieces after the burn. And then we get a lot of J.J. Abrams lens flare in this episode, so there's a little bit of fun stuff for everybody. But again, I'm not going to poo-poo it just yet. I'm still going to keep watching it, but it's better than some of the other stuff that I've seen before. So there you go, and I will yield the balance of my time.
Mike, how about your first impressions?
Yeah, I think Justin kind of nailed it, honestly, for how I feel about it, too. I didn't hate it. There are different aspects of the show that I'm more okay with than others. I like the kind of overall direction of where things are going. Dig into some details here in a minute, I suppose, but like the overall idea that we are picking up the pieces and figuring out how to carry forward is a very interesting plot line overall for me. So I enjoyed that, and I think the show approached it in a very thoughtful way. On the other side, a lot of the characters, I just can't get my head around. A lot of the humor, I can't get my head around. There are other things about the show that take me right back out of it when I'm just starting to feel it. So it's just a mixed bag for me.
Emily.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about this episode. Like, I don't hate it, but there were definitely some things that irritated the shit out of me, mainly in like how they portrayed some of the relationship stuff. And I question how quickly they could go from, oh yeah, we're gonna build in Paris to, okay, we'll just move it to the Betazoid homeworld and we'll do all this stuff for them because we want them back. The turnaround of that just did not seem feasible, but that seemed a little far-fetched. But I felt like this was more getting to know the characters than anything else and setting a baseline. I mean, it was fine from like a more world building aspect, I guess.
Kevin.
I agree with you, Emily. I thought that that was a quick turn. It would have been, I think, maybe a little bit better if they had strung that out a little bit more. I liked this episode better than the first. I thought the acting was better in this episode, and that's not to down any individual person. That's kind of how pilots go sometimes. That it's a little bit more rough than the regular part of the season. So I'm hoping that things will continue to improve as we get into it. I did notice a couple of very strange continuity errors that I perhaps have in-universe explanations, but I thought they were weird, which we can talk about if anyone wants to be pedantic like I am.
Oh, I do.
Absolutely.
Okay, the one thing that irritated me is she says stand at attention or leave, and then he proceeds to stand at ease just like his roommate is doing. Like, how do you get that wrong? That's basic military stuff. But I don't know. I very much like Caleb's character. I just hope they don't do this every single week where he screws up and then says, okay, I'll stay.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to get tired pretty quickly. So I'm hoping that he will settle in a little bit, and maybe they'll only do that occasionally, especially when stuff about his mom comes up. I really like seeing Robert Picardo. I think he continues to be a great presence here. Oded Fair is awesome. I do like Holly Hunter. I'm just wondering if she's a little too on the quirky side, but maybe that'll either get easier to watch or I'll just get used to it. And I definitely am interested to see where things go with Tarima's character. She was a very interesting addition. And I was assuming she was going to be a guest star, and it turns out it doesn't look like she will be. So she's going to be a series regular. So I'm much more interested in that dynamic going forward, too.
So I will say, I do like this episode, and I had to set aside my dislike of the premise of the burn. As I said in our last episode, like, I have no issue with something happening on a galactic scale that decimated Starfleet. I have no issue with that premise. How they did the burn and the premise of it in Discovery, much like many things in Discovery, the premise of which just completely baffled me as to why. And so I kind of had to set that aside, but I really like seeing how they're picking up the pieces and trying to bring the old Federation worlds back into the fold. So I did like that, bringing the Betazoids in. I also kind of liked the bit with the interpreters at the start and using the devices. It reminded me a little bit of the TNG episode with Riva. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but
Loud as a Whisper.
That's the one. I was thinking of another one that I knew wasn't right, but it kind of gave me reminiscent a bit of that episode. And I really liked kind of that piece, as well as some of the other little Easter eggs that were in here. The Boothby Memorial Garden plaque, the different things like that. So I like the bits and pieces and the tie-ins they're doing. Kind of like Mike said, there are some things that I kind of scratch my head and wonder a little bit about. Some of the cinematic choices. Definitely the lens flare, but at the same time I laugh because one of the other big criticisms of new Star Trek is, oh my God, the sets are so dark, the lighting's so dark. And then they add lighting and, oh my God, there's lights. It's kind of like, would you people shut the fuck up?
He's too bright.
And so I get some of it. And J.J. Abrams lens flares and Alex Kurtzman directing this, who is one of the disciples of J.J., cut the lens flares down. The overall lighting, I like the way the sets look. I like the direction. Just cut the lens flares a little. And with the acting, I agree. Holly Hunter is kind of weird in this, but now that I watched this and got to see the head of the War College, Commander Kelrick, I actually think Holly Hunter's weirdness as the Chancellor of Starfleet Academy balanced with what a stuffed shirt Kelrick is.
Yeah.
And again, knowing that I've watched episodes ahead of this, I think it's a nice balance actually in this, and I see it in this episode too, is that there is that really nice, I think it balances out between the two of them, especially when they are together.
So he's going to have a bigger part in episodes coming forward.
Yeah, because the War College is going to stay involved.
Okay.
So he'll be around for some pieces. All I'm going to say is I really am curious when the rest of you get to episode 5. And I'm also just going to say, watching that show the week that I did, because that's the week we recorded our season 2 recap show for especially The Lies, and we had Scott's brother Craig on there. And we made a comment, and Mike, you said the same thing about we would watch shows, and our first thought would be text Scott with the, oh, holy shit, did you see this? That episode, I had a rough time the night I watched that one. Not going to lie. That one hit every last goddamn feel I didn't think I had left.
Same. It was hard.
So let's go ahead and jump into any discussion we have around this episode and anywhere folks want to kick things off.
Okay, so can we start with the little gadget that Terima wears?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm wondering if she's like Tam from the
exactly
TNG
my thought
Tin Man episode,
awesome.
where like his was so like hypersensitive that he couldn't be around people. I mean, that was the premise of the whole episode. And I'm wondering if hers is like that or if it's different.
I have to believe it's meant to be
the same, like a callback
situation, except that now they have technology where she can still be telepathic, but it does not overwhelm her like it did Tam Elbrun.
And I'm wondering if it's because of who she is. Like, there is no option for her to, like, reject society and go out on her own and just chill with whales or whatever.
Well, I don't think they had an in-universe remedy or treatment
no, they didn't,
Tam Elbrun other than isolation.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say, she was not one of the writers on this episode, but Tawny Newsome has been in the writer's room for this series.
Mm-hmm.
And love Lower Decks or hate it, and I'm personally one that loves it, but Tawny Newsome is actually a very big Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
She knows this franchise, she knows the history, she knows the episodes, and I really think pieces like that you're seeing, even if she's not the credited writer of the episode, I think you're seeing that influence with some of the callbacks that are showing up.
And I'm wondering, they have, 2 seasons scheduled so far?
Yeah.
I'm wondering how that'll come into play, because that feels like it could be minor or it could end up being a really big plot point.
I was going to say that too. I really appreciated the fact that they didn't immediately pull attention of the viewer to it was in several scenes before they addressed that it was there and what it was. And then they left it alone after that. I kept waiting for the lazy writing thing to be here's the thing, here's the MacGuffin for the episode that's somehow going to affect everybody by the end and get resolved. And they didn't. Instead, they played it smart. They downplayed it. They planted the seed. And it's clearly, it's going to come up, I would expect, at some point later on. Maybe they'll trick us, and it won't. I personally kind of looked at that, and I looked at the introduction of the War College and the conclusion of the episode where she goes to the War College instead. And I sort of wonder if there's going to be something coming down the pipe story-wise where her abilities amplify some of that stuffiness over in the War College and puts them kind of head-to-head with Starfleet Academy, and it ends up being somehow related to her and her abilities. That's my speculation. My totally unfounded speculation.
Mike, I was actually along the exact same lines that you were, because one thing is you don't just introduce something like that and then never speak it again. So I immediately thought it was going to end up being some plot point where my original thought was, oh, well, Caleb's going to talk her into taking it off and then something's bad's going to go down. But I honestly think that she's in the War College, and I think that somehow they will try to utilize that as a weapon, and it's going to cause some issues that way. But that's kind of my own thoughts on it.
Yeah, somehow, some way. Like, it could be a really clever misdirect that just goes nowhere, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't really, especially on these shorter seasons, they don't introduce something that prominently that's going to be a throwaway.
Yeah. I mean, even camera, it was central to camera several times throughout the episode. So you know it's going to end up being a big deal later down the road.
Yeah, which was funny because it's like they wanted you to see it, and they wanted you to see it well before they actually talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess if we're ready to move on, like one thing that I wanted to bring up just because something you said, Blake, during your first impressions kind of made me think of it. I feel like visually the tone of this show is overall very different than normal Trek. It's much brighter, not just in the scenes when they're outside, but obviously a lot of scenes happen outside, it seems like in this, but like even the inside of the ship, I really do think is not just J.J. Abrams bright, but like it's a much more light-hearted, airy, the color palettes are brighter.
But there's also color to it, which I like, is like J.J. Abrams
Yeah.
with the Abrams verse. The Enterprise was pretty much white, lights, and black.
Yeah.
And in this one, I mean, there are kind of the warmer hues. You've got the red tones. You've got the warmer hues on the walls. It's still really well lit, but it's such a richer look to the sets.
Yeah, and I think maybe they're trying to get across that overall sort of hopefulness, maybe, is kind of like the palette that they're playing with. They're trying to make it nice and full. Like even the Chancellor Aik's office or quarters, I'm not sure which it is. Maybe both, but they're like a visual feast. There's a lot going on in that room.
Oh yeah. Please forgive me, but I was likening it to Dumbledore's office from Harry Potter.
I see it.
It really has that look to it. And that's a compliment because I think the room is really cool looking.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that I would expect from a being who's several hundred years old.
Yeah.
And just the amount of stuff that she collected over time. And from all the books on the wall, and like people were even fascinated. Oh my God, you actually have books. What is that like? And then like she pulls a vinyl and plops it on an old 1920s phonograph and just starts jamming out. I think that's just a further development of the longevity of her species, where I think I said the last episode, when you live that long, you have to be a little bit batshit crazy. So it's her. The one thing I'm really enjoying about her character is just how eccentric she is, but that's just a wealth of centuries of life and knowledge and absorbing everything. And then even when she was talking to the Betazoids about, I've spent a lot of time on your world. I've swam in your oceans. I've attended your institutions and stuff like that. And just the wealth of history that she has, it's natural that she carries a lot of that with her.
Yeah, and she grates a lot less than Pelia does, so I appreciate that. And believe me when I say I adore Carol Kane, but I'm not wild about I'm sure we've talked about this. I know Blake feels similarly to me, but I do not find Holly Hunter's character anywhere near as irritating as Pelia, thank God.
I was gonna say, like, I really want to like Pelly too, but like it's just so out of place.
Yeah. It takes me out of the episode. I don't have too much in this series that takes me out of it, but Pelia does on Strange New Worlds. And as much as there's been a couple of their fun episodes I haven't cared as much for as others, I don't want to be taken out of an episode, and her character can do that pretty quick.
Well, and I think that's just a lot of learning in the writer's room that carried over into academies, to where, you know what, this character doesn't necessarily she is a prime character in Strange New Worlds, but the overall reaction to her isn't great, so they just kind of turned her from an 11 down to maybe like a 7, and that's where you get Holly Hunter's character being a lot more easier to deal with.
Yeah, and I think she even got a lot easier to deal with in this episode versus the last, if you set aside the scene of her walking around barefoot, which, I mean, I'm glad we pivoted to this because this is something I wanted to talk about, is I do think her character will grow on you and become natural in time, but I definitely think like they're kind of hitting you over the head with the fact that she looks human, but she's not human, and she's kind of this new concept that a lot of us aren't overly familiar with. These I'm sorry, I forget the name of the race. Lanthanites that live forever. But yeah, I mean, I think there were the times when it was quirky and kind of over the top, but then other times when she's making her impassioned plea and you're kind of like, okay, I get it. Like I see the wisdom in this character, and now it's starting to make a little bit more sense, like why the writers chose to make her a Lanthanite and how that decision is going to kind of play into the show more so because she has a different, unique perspective than even other level-headed characters like Admiral Vance because she's lived much longer. And a lot of the eccentric stuff that feels weird even starts to make sense because, like you said, Justin, you get a little weird living that long, and you also start to give a shit less about trivial things like dress codes. Like I watched that scene and I kind of likened it to, of all things, What We Do in the Shadows. Well, like I try to explain that show to other people, and it's like the explanation goes like this: it's about a bunch of vampires that lived forever, and instead of being ruthless killing machines, you find out that they actually just get kind of weird and feckless after a while.
Exactly.
And like that's kind of how I feel. Like the Lanthanites aren't quite like that weird and that feckless, but like they get weird, they get eccentric, they get. So I'm like, okay, it's starting to click, and it's starting to make sense to be like I said, her
Yeah.
perspective being different than everyone else's, and why that choice was made.
If there is any chance we could get a cameo by Jackie Daytona, it would absolutely make my year.
She's supposed to be. She said she's what, like 300 some years old, right?
4. Yeah.
Oh, okay, it was
Over
4.
4.
So yeah, you know what? After like hundreds of years of having to wear socks and shoes, I would absolutely be like, nah, I'm tired of them. Like, I'm just gonna walk around. These floors are clean. What the hell's gonna happen?
Especially if you can just use a little laser whatever and get
Right?
your plantar fasciitis immediately.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, bye.
Absolutely. And I appreciated the over pants look she was rocking from 99,
I
2000.
don't even know if I'd noticed that.
It was a good look. I liked it on
Like,
her.
it looks fucking cute on her. What the hell?
Well, and did you notice that their coats are not symmetrical at the base? I thought that
They're
was
Yes.
an interesting costume choice.
Yeah, that was different, but not displeasing.
Doesn't bother me. It's just an
Yeah.
interesting choice.
Yeah.
For the cadet uniforms, you mean?
I noticed it more with
Or the regular
Holly
crew?
Hunter's character
Gotcha.
and,
Yeah, because it is
and the
awful.
first officer than I did on the cadets for some reason. But maybe that's just because I noticed it when one of them was turned around.
I think Vance's uniform is sometimes like that too. They actually change uniforms, I feel like, quite a bit throughout the show. Like they don't have like a standard. You don't always see the same character in the same dress, red and black, or you know what I mean? Like,
And the doctor's uniform has no color to it. It's all black and white. There's no
mhm.
hint of any red, blue, or gold at all.
Well, they sort of brought back in with this one, and they did this a little bit in some of the Star Trek movies where medical folks wore white. I mean, McCoy wore the standard red
Yeah.
uniform, but a
Yeah.
lot of the other medical teams wore white uniforms in the original movies. And that's one of the things they've brought back through Discovery, Strange New Worlds, even because Chapel on Strange New Worlds wears a white uniform.
Always white, yeah.
Always
Yeah.
white.
Which-
Discovery, Dr. Culber
Oh yeah, he wore white too. You're right.
always
You're
was
right.
in a white uniform, and even that carried over when they jumped into the future that medical was in a white uniform.
It's funny. I had just pointed that out. Like we started watching season 3, I guess, of Strange New Worlds. I'm on like the 3rd or 4th episode, but like, and the first episode that I watched, they were in the aftermath of the whole Gorn thing, and I was like, oh, the nurse is about to do surgery wearing a white outfit. That's a bold choice.
Brave choice.
Yes.
I do want to bring up one thing on this episode. We're talking about things that kind of take you out of it. And typically, these newer shows have been visually outstanding, especially the use of, they've got these massive video walls that are more or less a holodeck with current technology. I mean, Strange New Worlds has used that extensively, and they look stunning. But the scene where they went to the aquarium,
That was sad.
I mean, I've watched Heated Rivalry, and they use one of those type screens on that, and that entire show was made on a budget that is a fraction of what one of these episodes costs. That aquarium animation reminded me of 90s era Windows screensaver.
Mhm.
It was bad.
I did not notice it.
I was thinking Lisa Frank the entire time. It's
Yeah.
like with all the whales and the colors and everything.
There wasn't
and I
enough
was like,
pink for it to be Lisa Frank.
it was close.
It-
It was
getting there.
close.
Wow. I did note that it was pretty busy in terms of what you could see, because like I've gone to the aquarium and you have to squint pretty damn hard sometimes to see anything more than 2 inches away from the glass, but like, I guess I didn't notice anything else about the quality. Maybe my TV is
I
not good
didn't
enough.
either.
I think
Ah.
My
San
Apple
Francisco
TV
Bay is not
screensaver
that clear.
underwater world looks better than what that did.
I was
Okay.
watching it on my little like Microsoft tablet and I was like, ooh, that whale looks bad. Like
Yeah.
it would have been better to stick a movie screen with an actual video of a whale swimming. Like,
Star Trek 4, the one with the whales, did a better
yes,
job.
it would just pop that right in there. It would have
And
been
Sam-
better. I was disappointed in that. I was like, really? It's 2026 and y'all couldn't have done a little bit better with the whale?
And San Francisco Bay is not that clear.
The other part with that scene, too, that got me is, and I get that they spent a shit ton of money on the main set, and it's the largest set they have actually ever built for a Star Trek show. But that set was so clearly a reuse of Reno's classroom. Like, they didn't redress it at all. They literally took the thing out of the middle that Reno was fidgeting with, and other than that, literally left the room the
Yeah.
same.
But that makes me wonder, though. I wonder if it was the same room. Like, because even like with the whole breakdown during Reno's class, which I love seeing Reno back, by the way. That's one of the few characters from Discovery I did very much enjoy. But I almost wonder if that was meant to be more of a holographic image, and that was just Caleb showing her what a humpback whale looks like through like holographic means. I don't know. Maybe
No,
it
'cause she
wasn't an
said the
actual
whale's
aquarium after
pregnant.
all.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I
And,
forgot about
and
that
Caleb
part.
actually mentioned that it was that he found the place because he
That he
roamed
found-
campus and couldn't
yeah.
sleep.
Oh, that's true. Never mind.
So Blake, I'm going to ask, you mentioned the biggest set that they've ever constructed. Which set are you referring to? Is it the mall?
That atrium set, yeah.
So they actually built a lot of that, huh?
Oh yeah, that thing, they basically took over Pinewood Studios in Toronto.
Interesting. I'll have to
And
look up some
that,
pics.
like, massive atrium, those stairs that go up to that second level of it, that whole area behind kind of like the bleachers seat, like that is all, they
That's
built
all
that damn
big
thing.
multi-level set. That's cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I assumed some of it was real, but I mean, obviously it's not all real, but it's interesting. I'm curious to go look up some behind the scenes and see exactly where the difference is. One remark I was going to make is in episode 1, I kind of harped on it that whole set bothered the shit out of me, and just because of how big and impractical it was to be like inside of a spaceship. And I actually appreciated that they showed it, but didn't. How do I say it? They showed it from more flattering angles that didn't take me out of things quite as much by overplaying the grandioseness. Yeah.
I just looked it up for you, Mike. That set built at Pinewood in Toronto is 2 stories and 46,000 square feet.
Wow.
That's not
Okay.
including the filming. That's just the set, not any of the sides or behind the scenes. The whole
Oh,
set
wow.
is 46,000 square.
How big was the DS9 set? Because I obviously this is bigger, but how much bigger?
But Mike, I see what you're saying. And I think maybe because it was the pilot and they were kind of introducing everything,
Yeah.
they definitely did not spend nearly as much time focusing on the scale of the place as they did in the first episode. But like I said, I think that was mostly just story establishment more than anything else.
And I get that. They were trying to establish the vibe more than like any sort of realistic, making it look practical sort of thing. I forget what they call it. It's like heroic proportions. Like you watch a cartoon or something and that's actiony, and like all of a sudden hero characters are actually like disproportionately larger to other characters because it's the emotion they're trying to convey.
The DS9 Promenade set was just under 12,700 square feet.
Holy hell. That's a big difference. The only thing I will say is some of those humongous cruise ships, they do have those large great rooms that would probably not rival this one, but at the same time, you would put them in the same category as far as kind of the look of them. So I don't know. It's not the most impractical thing I've ever seen, but it sure is stunning.
Yeah.
I like too, because one of my criticisms has always been you have the Enterprise D from Next Generation, the massive Galaxy class starship, which they said had a crew of 1,000, and they actually worked this out. Like a modern aircraft carrier has a crew of 5,000, and you've got the entire Enterprise D allegedly with a crew of 1,000. And granted, it was a TV budget in the 80s and 90s, but until really Generations, when you saw that large, expansive stellar cartography set, you saw these relatively confined spaces for what was supposed to be this very large, very grand ship. So I do like that now that they've got the budgets and they have the ability, whether it be through technology to extend the sets, because I know like Strange New Worlds, the Enterprise set, engineering set is largely one of those video monitor sets to extend out the physical set. But even when they're doing that, they're adding a sense of scale to actually match up with these ships, which I am enjoying that.
Yeah, I guess it's all relative because now I start thinking of other things. Like I've always thought the space stations in Star Trek are ridiculously too large and things like that. But at the same time, I watch those shows and it doesn't take me out of it when I see them either. So I think some of my feelings with this one are being carried over from the later seasons of Discovery because there were times on Discovery when decisions were made, we'll just say, and it's like, I forget what episode it was, but it was like, here's the inside of our ship, and like the hallway floor has to like materialize as a bridge under your feet as you walk and then disappears again when you step off of it. It's just like weird stuff like that that is super unnecessary and doesn't make any sort of practical sense to me. And so like I kind of took those feelings and brought them over here and like looked at the inside of the Athena and was like, that's stupid. But
I did appreciate that they showed a turbo lift in this one, and it was actually like a turbo shaft, not the never-ending cavern, because we've commented on this a lot. If anyone who has watched Discovery, there's that whole episode where they're in the turbo shaft and they end up outside the turbo lift. And the problem is it's not so much a turbo shaft as it's a turbo void.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the TARDIS of Star Trek. There is no way in hell that is the actual interior of that goddamn ship.
You could talk about Star Trek V being the absolute pinnacle of that kind of stupidity.
No, this is worse than 5.
100 levels.
At least it was a shaft. This thing was literally an expansive void.
Okay, I don't think I saw that, so
I will find the YouTube video and send you a clip because it is ridiculous.
Yeah, it was damn near like we didn't want to build a set, so we just made it really dark in the room and like showing a spotlight down the middle. Enough harping on that, but I will harp on one other thing that, since you mentioned it, Kevin, takes me out of episodes when I watch them. Is it just me, or is the humor not clicking? Like
Which humor?
Well,
maybe
like,
that's a problem.
Maybe like Trek has always had humor.
Mm-hmm.
Newer Trek has leaned into it more than old Trek, and I'll say like I'll watch Strange New Worlds, and they'll do jokes and gaffes and even a little bit of slapstick, and it doesn't really faze me. But I feel like whenever there's a joke in this show so far, it almost hits me like a pie in the face gag. Like it feels forced. Like the scene at the very end, it was not a good note to end on when Caleb walks back into his room and meets his new roommate, and they're all having like a throw off weightlifting competition. I'm like, what are we doing?
Okay, that's because we are now old and not this age bracket.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Emily. This is
other
geared,
stuff too.
Some of this is geared towards teenagers trying to capture a younger audience. So they're going to have stupid man dude bro stuff throughout kind of.
But it wasn't just that one. Like there are lots of other times when they would insert a joke or a gag or some slapstick, and it always felt like it just didn't belong there to me. Like I don't know what it is, but every time it happens, I'm like, ugh, just a little cringe.
And I think some of it is they're trying to lighten the tone from Discovery, which I'm going to do a screen share real quick. These are some GIFs from the episode that we're talking about with the infamous Discovery turbo shafts.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
It's
what is this, Tron?
Right? Yes, this is apparently the interior of the ship with the turbo lifts.
No, it's not.
Which is almost as egregious as the Super Mario pipe factory that is the engine room in the...
So now you see when we make fun of that, what we're talking about. I will edit that.
Thank you. I don't care for the dynamic between Caleb and his roommate. I feel like that's forced a little too much.
And that's kind of what I mean. It's all just pure...
predictable.
Silly dick joke type humor that just it's not clever. It's just like we gotta fit a joke in here somewhere, guys.
Yeah.
Let's have these two flip each other off in the middle of class.
What would be really great is if we put the two worst enemies in the same room.
Yeah.
Cha-chow. But I mean, honestly, I guess I don't know. I don't particularly enjoy it, but it also at the same time it doesn't bother me. And I think some of the background gags are actually kind of interesting. Like there was when everybody was walking into the banquet, and was it the guy from the War College? I'm still trying to learn names. Walks in
Kelrick.
and he walks by Caleb and Jaden, and Caleb just kind of smiles at him, and then as soon as he turns around, spits out whatever food he had on his plate.
Mm.
Like, again, it's interesting background stuff, but at the same time, it doesn't irk me at all. I guess maybe
Yeah.
I'm just
Or
weird.
Caleb trying to storm out of Ake's office and taking a wrong turn and having to to cut back across. Like, some of it's funny, some of it's cute, and other times it's just like, that didn't need to happen.
I just chalk it up to teenage humor, which is where I think they're trying to go with it.
It is, and I oftentimes have people point out that they'll say the same thing about Family Guy. Like, I can watch Family Guy and laugh at it all day long, but other people, like, it just lands like a brick.
And that's
and
how
I get it.
Family Guy is with me. It just doesn't land.
So I get it. It's probably a little bit of personal taste, but yeah.
I'll tell you one thing that does land with me though is Tig Notaro's character.
Oh my god!
Oh yeah.
You know,
I
really
didn't
get that here.
I really like her.
Oh yeah,
I liked her. I liked her in the bit of Discovery that I watched, but that scene in this episode I did not care for.
I think Reno's a fantastic character, and I think the whole thing was just trying to prove how smart Caleb is. Is like, I already know everything, and I'm gonna stand up. And it's honestly, I guess it's a harken back to. I guess I can kind of relate to where your teacher calls you up in front of class, and it's just super awkward, and you don't want to talk, and stuff like that. So I think it's right now. I think they're still trying to find their footing on how much awkward teenager angst they want to throw into this versus any kind of deep storytelling and stuff like that. So to me, it was just kind of kitschy to, I guess, the whole school theme.
Well, and Caleb is what? He's actually 20, 21?
Around that, yeah.
Oh, so he's older than a lot of the other characters,
Yeah,
I
so
think.
he's older, but he's also been predominantly like taking care of himself. So some of it is he doesn't have the social skills because he's been in survival mode.
Yeah.
Trying to find his mom for.
And that's one thing with kind of I think they're taking characters, and this is again the problem with some of the shorter season. We don't see a lot of the character development. They're handing us developed characters more or less.
Yeah.
Whereas like DS9, we watched the characters develop over the course of Deep Space Nine. They're handing this character, and I think if you consider the background of the character, that he's for 15 years basically been a fugitive searching for his mother on his own, been in and out of prisons and jails. I think maybe then the behavior makes a little more sense. If we would have saw that develop over a season before he ended up at the academy, I think you could probably look at that and go, okay, you know what? That behavior makes a little more sense than just seeing it as the pre-title sequence of episode 1, and then all of a sudden, here we have it. The other part was some of the humor, and our friends over at Trek Culture kind of made the same observation. A lot of older Star Trek shows earlier in the franchise had jokes or references, but they weren't so specific to a period in time. They avoided using contemporary language. They avoided using contemporary insults, with the exception of Star Trek 4, which took place in the 80s via time travel. But by and large, you didn't have that kind of language showing up in the Star Trek universe. Versus the humor and some of the language that's being used, I think, especially in Academy, even more so than what it's been in Strange New Worlds, really is going to date this show to now, more so probably than any other series in the franchise.
Yeah,
that's a good observation. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're also keeping the technobabble down a little bit more than they have on other shows too, which I'm sure is intentional.
Oh, for sure. Well, there's one plot point that was brought up earlier that I kind of want to address if we're ready to move on from this.
Sure.
So the comment was, I think it was maybe both Blake and Kevin made a comment about how a bunch of a quick turnaround between, hey, we're rebuilding in Paris to, hey, let's drop our government seat on Beta Z.
Yep, that irritated me.
Honestly, it makes perfect sense to me, and I'm not trying to be the Nicole here and be all super positivity and everything like that, but that part of it shows to me how desperate the Federation is.
Yep.
It's, to me, it was more of an act of desperation of how they are putting up a front of, hey, we're rebuilding, we're gonna go back out there and make a difference, to behind the scenes, it's gotta be trauma panic mode back there, and they need and it's kind of made, you get the feeling throughout the episode, the Federation needs the Betazoids a lot more than the Betazoids need the Federation. They do make comments about how Betazoid technology is becoming outdated because of them isolating themselves off from the rest of the galaxy, but the Federation is still coming out of severe crisis mode, and they're still in that crisis where
Right.
they're having to rebuild cities because of all of this, and seems to be still kind of a dark place.
Well, I think that's
All
a
right.
good point.
You sold me. You absolutely sold me.
Well, and I think as much as Betazoid technology is maybe starting to fall behind, I think you could probably almost guess the same thing may be true for the Federation. I mean,
Oh,
if they've
absolutely.
been-
They're having to reinvent things.
Yeah.
And so to me, it came off as to maybe that's what they wanted all along. I'm not sure if I'd go that far, but it is definitely something to where, holy crap, okay, we can't give them the starships because I'm not 100% sure the class of starships Beta Zed's wanting exists yet. So let's give them the capital, force them to open up, so then we can build up our defenses from there.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say, is because Beta's knows because they even said they've had attempts to penetrate their barrier. They've had issues, and at some point their technology is going to be to a point where it won't protect them against other developing or newer technologies.
Right.
And so Beta Z needs the security of the Federation as well, and this is a way that the Federation can do that without just basically saying, we're going to give you all of our fleet, basically, but if you put the seat of government there, then we have a mutual purpose to do this.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you, Justin. It kind of made sense to me, and I think they made a reference early in the episode about the fact that like they had only just barely started the construction anyway in Paris. So yeah, it was a quick pivot, but if you think about it, having the Beta Zeds even come to Earth and then they were there for 3 days and they decided to throw their whole planet
completely
into Starfleet again. The whole thing was pretty fast. So
well, I mean, but if you've had to deal with the French.
Yeah. But they were talking about how Beta Z was behind the barrier and they weren't even communicating with the outside world. I'm like, okay, but if no one can get in and you can't communicate through the barrier, how'd they communicate to set this up? Like, they drop shield for a minute, send a special.
Well, I think they commented in that it was Beta Z that initiated the contact, so they've got the ability to send a message out
if they want to. Okay,
if they want to, because it talked about how there was the movement amongst Betazoid's youth that pushed them to open the negotiations. So I think it probably came from within. It wasn't the Federation going and knocking on the door, going, "Hey!"
Right, and that was kind of where I was like, okay, so how did the communication actually happen if there was that barrier? But I guess it would make sense that they would still have a way to send messages out, even if they weren't receiving anything. If shit really hit the fan and they were like, hey, y'all should know everything's just being destroyed or whatever might
Did
happen.
anyone else get a morbid chuckle out of the fact that the Beta Zeds built a wall?
No, not until now,
that's
Mike.
More or less what they said.
But
Even though it's
pay for it.
Silly bullshit space wall that doesn't even remotely possible. But
and did the Cardassians pay for it?
Talking about bad jokes.
No, they made the Dominion pay for it for reparations.
Yeah. But
all these centuries later.
Yeah, I guess thinking about it from like a diplomatic standpoint, I think both sides had to come to the table. And maybe, to your point, Mike, why were they able to knock out this major galactic changing event in 3 days? It's because both sides are desperate, but you have to come to the table projecting strength.
Yeah.
We don't need you. You need us more than we need you kind of mentality from both sides. And both of them were like, and I think the reality is that neither side, neither the Federation nor the Betazoids, would probably survive very long without the other. So I think it was just a complete matter of necessity.
Yeah, that may very well be true. My logical brain says that nothing like that major would get decided so quickly. Even if they wanted to do it, they'd probably still go home and then pretend like they had a conversation and then send an email. But it doesn't make good TV.
Spoiler warning for any of our Especially the Lies people, just plug your ears for a minute. They literally ended the Dominion War because Odo turned to goo, the changeling female turned to goo, they combined, they had a little moment, and then they fucking surrendered.
Yep.
Okay, that was still better.
3 days with Betazoid to avoid the French seems perfectly plausible compared to that.
The orgasm that ended a war.
And
Yes.
our ratings in France have just plummeted. Thank you, Blake.
Okay, you can unplug your ears now, listeners.
The only other thing, I'm going to say this one time on this episode, and then I'll never say it again.
Lies.
But it's going to live forever on the internet, so go ahead.
Okay, I really wish they were doing this show based in the 24th century or even the early 25th century. And I realize that's just nostalgia on my part. But that being said, I do not hate the show. I think it has a lot of promise, and I'm interested to see where it's.
I did have to laugh at one bit of criticism on this. They were talking about like the muscle shirts and Caleb with his shirt off in this one. Did these people not watch Star Trek Enterprise in the decontamination room?
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
Ooh, that was.
oh boy,
Yeah.
that
Or-
room was called an
You know,
HR problem.
I was
Or,
gonna
you know,
say-
Voyager with a couple of those outfits.
Right.
I didn't know Vulcans were that
I
hot.
am going to say there's a few scenes where the pants are a little tight. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Some of the costuming really makes you scratch your heads, but yeah, considering the Enterprise decontamination room was all but an HR problem waiting to happen.
Well, there was more than a touch of the CW present in Enterprise as well as this show. So
Fair.
I mean, not that I'm complaining about Connor Trinneer in his underwear by any means.
And we
Well,
all
no,
give to
that-
Paul a showing.
Oh, I'm with Hoshi Sato. I'm sorry.
See,
Yeah.
something for everybody.
Why not
Yeah.
both?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or que no nos dos.
Yeah. T'Pol didn't do anything for me.
I
She
didn't
didn't
like
do
her
anything for
hair.
me either until that scene.
No, it was
Well,
just a
and
bad
as we've
haircut.
established, Justin has a thing for bitchy women, so it worked.
I just wanted to pet poor.
Well,
Oh,
yeah.
you're a good boy. I didn't know Wishbone got into Star Trek, but there we are.
I liked Porthos so much that I got a beagle.
I was gonna say it's not even the same kind of dog, Justin. You're gonna get people writing us angry letters
Oh, please, we get those
Of
on a
all
regular
things,
because
over-
Jessi speaks.
over that. Yeah.
Oh,
that's
trust
true.
me, I've had a lot worse said about me for a lot less, so I'm not worried about it.
So I think we've hit some of the high points of this episode. I think in general, I will say I get people that have criticism that this isn't Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek. It isn't. It is very much a different tone of show. There are definitely points in it that are open to criticism in the production values and some of the writing. I'm gonna be honest. I love seeing Robert Picardo back as the Doctor.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I think they've taken the prickly prick aspect of his personality a little too far. I mean, not that he was ever the warm, cuddly, fuzzy guy as the Doctor, but you would think in 800 years, some bedside manner. I just think they've overplayed that sarcastic aspect of his personality.
If you had to deal with humans for 800 years, tell me you'd get nicer.
Yeah,
Look,
you turn into
Granted.
yeah, you would totally turn into Doctor House too. Yeah.
I'm really hoping that the Sam character gets a little bit easier to watch.
Yes.
I think she will.
I'm a little annoyed by the character, and I'm hoping that it doesn't stay that way.
She's a baby hologram. She'll
I was too, but I think you're going to hit a
Yes.
turning point.
Okay. And
Yeah.
I'm very willing to watch and see that and say, okay, hey, things have turned the corner here, but
Episode. I don't know
5.
how much I want to tell you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll explain.
we
Get-
want
get
more people
5.
to tune
I
in later.
think that's going to flip a switch on this.
what was
Yeah.
the Discovery character? She wasn't on the whole show. She was
Tilly?
Tilly. She reminds me of Tilly, but Tilly didn't annoy me quite as much as Sam does, although Tilly could be a lot
Well,
at times.
I think the idea is Sam is supposed to annoy you because there's even that comment in this one where Sam goes up to, what is it, Genesis, I think, and goes, people tell me I'm a bit much. Am I a bit much?
hmm
So
Well-
I think that's intentional. I really do.
Yeah.
She's also like photonic and existed for like what, a week?
17 days, I
Yeah.
think, at the point.
Yeah,
that
before
started.
she even got to Starfleet Academy. So
that's what I
she
said, she's just a
looks like
BB,
an adult, but she's really like
a
Yeah.
toddler. Yeah.
yes, social skills were like toddler development stage.
Yeah.
Well,
I
and
mean,
Data was pretty rough early on too
Yes.
at
Mhm.
times. So
yeah.
I take all of that into account when I say
Yeah.
I'm very willing to watch a show where she grows and it becomes a character that I enjoy watching more so than now.
And
I
again,
think
Will,
that's-
we love you. You're great, but it's not season 1 Wesley Crusher either.
No,
Yeah.
no.
I mean,
Again, Will, we love you.
Yes, very much so. Will
Listen.
is
I think that point is well spoken, though. trying to back off of my criticism of individual characters at this point, because what we have seen so far is the pilot where everybody is awkward,
Mm-hmm.
and now this episode where I'm already starting to come around on Ake, who I was super critical of. So I'm with you. Like, I'm willing to watch the show hoping that all of the characters start to grow and become more natural feeling than they already are. And to your point you mentioned earlier with Caleb and constantly his rebellious nature and testing his limits and threatening to leave, I'm like, it would be a huge disservice if they don't at some point get away from that, and if it's a reoccurring thing every week, because it would show that he's not growing as a character. And this show is very much, I'm already seeing in episode 2, this show is already very much about him growing as a character.
And my concern about Caleb is that I don't want them just to make him another Kirk character. I really hope they kind of take him into his own direction and isn't just the rebellious officer that you can't help but love, so you let him slide with a lot of the regulations and just becomes kind of almost an original series Kirk type character.
Well, and some of it, I think, is there's definitely, they're playing towards the guilt Holly Hunter's character has.
Mm-hmm.
With basically, and you hit close to home in real world, they separated a family.
Yeah.
They knew damn good and well what they were swinging at with episode 1.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean family separation is bad? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they knew damn good and well what axe they were swinging when they did that with this one.
Sure. Or does it turn into an Anakin Skywalker where something happens to Mom and then he just goes batshit on everybody?
But one thing I do want to, and again, I'm not going to give spoilers on the episodes, but one of the things they've done as we get through this series, and it even goes back to some of the Strange New Worlds criticism, is some characters got really focused on in episodes while others got ignored. Like, we never really have seen a really good Erica Ortegas episode out of Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
But this one, I will say, from what I have seen so far, they are giving each of these main cadet characters a chance for their story to be front and center, if that makes sense.
That's good. I like the sound of that.
So you are getting a chance. Now, granted, we're only up to episode 5. We've got a new one coming out this week. We are, by the way, that's a good thing to touch on. We are releasing these every 2 weeks. So obviously the show is going to wrap before we finish this show. But at the point we are recording this, episode 6 is about to drop this week. But they really have been focusing on different characters and telling those stories. And even though they weave together, there is the chance for each character to shine. I think that's a fair assessment to say.
That's good.
It's a good point too, Blake. We need to be a little careful about not talking about things ahead of where viewers are if they are watching Academy along with us. So we'll be careful.
So I've tried to keep the spoilers to a minimum, but still say there are things coming.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be us if there weren't a spoiler or two, though.
Just don't pull a Kevin.
Yeah.
That's our group policy. We don't pull Kevins. I think you still get the prize for best spoiler.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Although somebody else was it Scott or somebody had one that they let slip.
Me.
It wasn't quite as but it wasn't quite as big as mine. Yeah, it wasn't quite as big as mine.
No, but Scott let one rip too, because I can't remember what it was, but I know we were doing a recording and I fired off a message. Dude, shut the fuck up.
Okay, you guys say that, and I don't, because I'm assuming, I don't remember any of that.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming I just, stopped listening to y'all at some point.
There was
That's
a few
also
points in
entirely
2017 where you just went and were reading your smut while we were...
Mine was about Claudia leaving the show.
Yeah, yours was the Claudia one.
Well,
I know what the Scott one was. It was Marcus dying. He made a comment.
Oh,
about
yes!
Marcus dying.
Yes.
And that's the one where I'm shooting him the message going, dude, shut the fuck up.
What was
I don't remember what mine was either, but I just remember as soon as I said it, all of a sudden I started hearing bling, 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 bling. It's like several of you started messaging me on Facebook to say, stop it.
I hope none of the Grey 17 people remember the spoiler for DS9 that I dropped while we were recording our Babylon 5 finale.
Oh, yeah, so we had that too. Where it was live, that Kevin and I looked at you and went, dude, shut the fuck up.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Stop it!
Stop!
Also, I just feel this hand hitting me. Just quiet.
Well, I can safely say with our group, I don't think you have to worry about him remembering much.
Nope.
Yeah.
For
So I
real.
think we have made our way through our discussion of beta test for Star Trek Starfleet Academy.
Yeah, I just got the title. Oh my god.
Really? Really?
Ding, ding,
Really,
ding, we have a
Mike?
winner.
It's been a long week.
And we will be back with our next episode, as Star Trek does love its Latin titles, with Vetus Reflux. We will be back with that on our next episode as we go through this. You can also follow along with our main show, as we are now probably into Star Trek Deep Space Nine Season 3, or very close to starting Season 3 by the time you get this episode released. Thank you for the counter. Yes, we should be in Season 3 by the time this episode gets released. So you can follow along with our rewatch of Star Trek Deep Space Nine with our entire crew, with our newbies in tow. And occasionally we bring in some guests. We've been known to bring in our favorite Aussie from Yum Yum Pod. We've even had Kevin and Justin pop in for some special episodes and discussions that we've done from time to time. So make sure to check that out. We've got all of our social media links down below, including the link to our Patreon, where we release special bonus content. We have a 30-minute outtakes reel from Season 2 that we have exclusively on Patreon that we will also at some point be releasing on YouTube. You can learn some interesting things about our host, our browser histories, our Facebook ads, anything you want to learn about our host. You can make sure to check out our 30-minute outtake reel. And if you join our Patreon at any level, you also get access to our Discord, where you can learn truly how messed up we really are on this show. Well, assuming Discord is still a thing. Read the news from a few weeks ago and you'll understand. We'll see where Discord goes in the month of March. I am Blake, and with me has been
Emily.
Mike.
Kevin.
And Justin.
Night, y'all.